Folks, the situation with them aliens is getting more and more creepy by the day. Now, if you followed this channel for a while, you've know I've done a couple of videos recently about, people involved in alien activity, UFOs, extraterrestrial beings, as well as very high-tech technology that's being used to launch rocket ships into space, potentially going to be used to make weapons for international warfare. And a lot of people involved in these things just so happen to be disappearing and being murdered suspiciously. Now, I've covered this. Not a lot of people have been covering this. This hasn't really been in the mainstream media too much, but it is now beginning to get to the very top. We are now seeing representatives in the, in the Senate and in basically in Congress looking into this, asking questions and wondering what the hell is going on with this. And in this video, I'm going to tell you about some more deeper details on some of the people who, had sort of very coincidentally and suspiciously died after being involved in very secret space and technology programs. And I'm going to touch on some news stories that you might not have heard that will definitely make you question whether or not something is going on behind the scenes. Could be alien warfare, could be a hostile government, but it is very, very, very suspicious. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, okay, we're seeing a US House representative asking questions and making this post, okay? This is Eric Burleson, and basically this is going around the UFO subreddit. All right, I thought I was already in there. Let me make sure that I'm joined. And basically somebody shared this story that I touched on in the previous video. Aerospace engineer Monica Jacinto Reza, co-inventor of a key US rocket alloy, vanished while hiking in 2025, and months later, Major General William Neil McCasland, who oversaw the program that funded it, also vanished without a trace. And Eric Burleson said, "I'm not suicidal." He is giving a little bit of oxygen to these stories that are going around, and it is very, very interesting. Okay, people are saying this is the plot of the beginning of Three Body Problem. I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming that's some kind of UFO creepy film or something. It says, "I'm now convinced 90% of what's behind UAPs would so drastically improve our lives that the ones behind the hiding of it are desperate to keep our control. No one is out of reach, maybe not even Kennedy during a parade." People are saying, how many people is that? The MIT professor, wasn't someone killed in California, then these two? There's a bunch. I've got 6. Honestly, I've got 6. I've seen 4 people that have been murdered, well, seemingly murdered, and 2 people that have disappeared. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, okay? It says if they touch McCasland, they'll have no problem touching a congressman, right? Saying he also gave his 2 cents on NASA, and he doesn't really believe they have classified info on UFOs. Let's see that. So he said, "From my experience, I can believe that NASA doesn't know anything on UAPs or UFOs. Why would the intelligence community tell NASA anything? Their mission is science. It isn't national security. They work and cooperate with foreign governments. There's no way that they're trusted with critical intelligence." Okay, people saying this was in response to an original post where Representative Tim Burchett says that NASA is lying when they say they have nothing on UFOs, but he believes NASA doesn't know anything about it, but the defense departments might actually know something. Now, in the last video, I did talk to you guys a little bit about one of the stories of, one of the people that was dealing with this technology that went out very suspiciously. And basically, people were bringing up the name Nuno Loureiro. This is an MIT professor and world-renowned plasma physicist who basically died just months ago in December 2025. And we're gonna explain how this very suspicious death connects with all of these other things. But first off, let me just summarize, okay, some of the sort of broader suspicious activity going on around this. So this says 6 people connected to the same US Defense Research Network are dead or missing in under a year. I saw this on Twitter. Nothing suspicious, right? Monica Jacinto Reza, aerospace engineer, co-inventor of Mondeloy. Mondeloy is the alloy tied to America's replacement for Russian rocket engines. Funded through AFRL programs, work with NASA JPL. June 22, 2025, goes hiking in Angeles National Forest, waves at her companion, disappears, and nobody's ever been found. It says 4 days later, Melissa Cassius, she was a Los Alamos National Laboratory employee, Department of Energy Advisory Board member. She drives into the lab that morning, told her daughter she forgot her badge. Family said that makes no sense. She goes home. Both her phones are factory reset. She leaves everything behind, walks towards the forest, and is never seen again. Then October the 25th, 2025, Jacob Pritchard. He was an AFRL Sensors Directorate, TS-SCI clearance, Air Force analyst. He killed his wife, Jamie, broke into a co-worker's apartment, kills First Lieutenant Jamie Gustitis, then kills himself on camera. That's 3 AFRL-connected people dead in one night. Then Carl Grillmere, Caltech astronomer, worked on NEOWISE and as a NEO surveyor. Systems were used to detect asteroids. Same physics were also applied to tracking satellites and hypersonic weapons. December 2025, an armed man is caught on his property carrying an unregistered rifle, lies about why he's there. He's arrested. The charges get dismissed. Then 11 days later, on February the 16th, 2026, the same man returns. He shoots Grillmare on his porch, and Grillmare dies at the scene. Now we've got William Neal McCasland, former AFRL commander, controlled billions in aerospace research budgets tied to the same programs funding Mondaloy, disappears. And then people bring up Nuno Loriero, 47-year-old MIT professor and director of the Plasma Science and Fusion Center, shot and killed at his home in Brookline, Massachusetts on December the 15th, 2025. People saying plasma is what they all have in common since no one has seemed to figure it out yet. People saying 99.99% of the universe is plasma. Recent research suggests that plasma is conscious. What if you could communicate or manipulate the plasma? What kind of powers could that give you? It's because our universe is contained in a living body. That is creepy and scary. Okay. So let's take a little closer look at Nuno Loriero, okay? He was shot and killed inside of his home in December 2025. This was reported on the news at the time. And people didn't raise their eyebrows at this
just
point.
Less than an hour ago, I spoke with the Brookline Police Department, and they tell us no one is in custody. So this shooter, it seems likely, is still out there. Neighbors, understandably, very shaken up by this. They tell us that the 47-year-old MIT professor lived in this building right here. He lived on the first floor, they tell us, in that corner apartment building. Here's what else they had to say.
At about 9 o'clock, I heard 3 loud bangs. I thought at first it was somebody in our apartment kicking in the door or something. So I called the neighbors, and they said no, they thought it was gunshots. And so we came out, and the police had already arrived, and they took him away. We didn't even know who it was or what had happened.
They've identified the victim now as Nuno.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What do you know about Nuno?
He's a neighbor and a good neighbor. Quiet. They've been living here for quite a while. And next door, and nice folks.
He's from Portugal.
Yeah. He's from Portugal.
He lives right next door?
Yeah, they live right here, on the first floor.
Nuno's an MIT professor?
That's what I understand, yeah.
Nuclear scientist?
Is he?
Yeah, that's what it says on the website.
Oh, man.
What do you think about this taking place, sir? Right next to you. Brookline's not known for crimes like this.
No.
Yeah, I think that it's really a surprise. And a shooting in a state where it's so hard to even have a gun? I hope they find out what it was all about, and whoever did it is apprehended.
But even the neighbor's suspicious. When they said nuclear scientist, he kind of was like, what? So let's see what people are saying. People are saying, doesn't exactly sound like a random act of violence. That's a hit. Taking out a nuclear scientist from MIT is a national security issue. This man was assassinated. He was my professor back in MIT, one of the most brilliant people I've ever had the honor to meet. Sounds like a targeted attack instead of a random. Nuclear scientist and engineering professor. I smell an assassination. I'm guessing all of the cameras have 3 hours of missing footage, huh? We heard that one before. It's absolutely spooky, okay? So Nuno had apparently worked on advanced plasma, fusion, and nuclear energy technology, but it was his plasma overwork that had an interesting overlap with the government's classified secret space program.
And when you think of the fact that he was responsible for MIT fusion and plasma division, that opens up the possibilities to not just free energy, but what's plasma? What is the energy that he's studying, and has to do with the sun, it has to do with the moon, it has to do with so many things that he could have been just about to reveal. And thus, there's a good motive for silencing him.
I've spoken to sources here on the show, members of the military, members of the U.S. military, whistleblowers, and others who've worked on the secret space program. My viewers know them well. We have a big interview that's coming out this week on that topic specifically. They've seen this plasma technology in action, at least specifically within the secret space program, within the confidential halls of the military, in a military capacity or otherwise. So a civilian, by all accounts, at MIT gets close to discovering or harnessing what we already know we have. And therein lies the conflict, no?
So look, the title of this interview, it says another MIT professor assassinated after he makes a landmark plasma energy discovery. Now, it makes you worry, you know, are people even going to want to make these kind of groundbreaking technological discoveries if they're going to be assassinated under suspicious circumstances and the whole thing's going to be swept under the rug? Now, a lot of people think that it's because of plasma being used to generate free energy. People are saying the criminal elite won't allow free energy. It would free people from their dependency and control. A patient cured is a customer lost. They're killing anyone that wants to help humanity. Denying free energy is a crime against humanity. People are saying, wake up. Now, that would suggest that it's actually the powers that be, maybe the oil barons, you know, maybe the people that would benefit from, you know, our expensive, outdated energy infrastructure, who might want to take him out, rather than a hostile government or even a more extraterrestrial explanation for this. Now, 2 days after this, the police would discover the suspect of a massive Brown University shooting dead inside his storage unit, and they would apparently link him to the murder of the professor, but some people aren't really buying this.
After a nearly week-long manhunt that left the nation on edge, police have identified the shooting suspect who killed 2 Brown University students and an MIT professor. Authorities were able to follow his trail thanks to the help of a homeless hero who provided them with key information, which led them to a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. There, they found 48-year-old Claudio Neves Valente dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So who was this demented person who reportedly barked like a dog while he opened fire on his victims? Here's everything you need to know. On Saturday, December 13th, a crazed gunman dressed in black stormed an engineering building at Brown University, killing 2 people and injuring 9 others. In a rampage which left the campus in a panic, a sophomore, Ella Cook, and a freshman, Mohammed Aziz Umerzakov, were named as the victims who lost their lives in the horrific massacre. The killer managed to escape police and remained at large. The Ivy League campus and parts of the Rhode Island capital of Providence were left under lockdown and in a state of terror as a desperate manhunt was underway. Nothing was known about the shooter, whom police have since revealed made a disturbing sound during the massacre.
Some witnesses said he said nothing. There are some that say he made a barking noise. Don't ask me. I don't know why. And that's it. There is no other spoken word beyond that we are aware of.
Then on Monday, December 15th, an MIT nuclear science professor was shot dead in his $1.4 million home. Respected Professor Nuno Loureiro, a 47-year-old married father of 3, was found lying on his back in the building foyer by a neighbor who heard gunshots and then called 911, along with the academic's wife. Loureiro, who was a native of Viseu, Portugal, later died in the hospital, rocking the quiet and affluent Boston suburb, as once again, the killer got away. There was no description of the shooter and contradictory info given on a possible getaway vehicle. We have a description of a gray sedan with no headlights, an on-scene officer reported, while stressing that we also have a description of a blue or black sedan. In the meantime, investigators were scrambling to ID the gunman who killed the 2 Brown students. Video released by authorities offered a first glimpse at the alleged gunman turning a corner after leaving the area where the shooting took place. He calmly walked onto Hope Street in full dark attire and appeared to be wearing either a hood or a face covering that obscured his face from the cameras. The shooting itself was not captured on camera. Then on December 16th, another grainy image was released of the pudgy person of interest, but authorities remained stumped until finally there was a break when a man posted on Reddit that cops should investigate a possible rented gray Nissan with Florida plates that he spotted in Providence while having an odd interaction with a man. The man
See, another heinous crime solved by Reddit, man. Shout out to all the Reddit detectives.
had confronted the suspect at the time, saying, "Your car is back there. Why are you circling the block?" The suspect responded, "I don't know you from nobody." And then, "Why are you harassing me?"
And he blew this case right open. He blew it open.
The tipster, known only as John, turned out to be a homeless man who had been living in the basement of the engineering building at the time, sources told Fox News. He bumped into Valente and noticed he was acting suspiciously. Working off John's information, authorities tapped into additional surveillance footage that ultimately led them to the gunman. The homeless hero has now been credited with cracking the shootings, as the feds say he is now entitled to the staggering $50,000 reward. Thanks to John's lead, authorities learned that Claudio Neves Valente rented the gray Nissan in Boston and changed its license plates. According to prosecutors, he also used a phone that masked his location and had credit cards that weren't under his name. The gunman was then connected to the death of Loureiro through the rental car and other movements. Security footage captured Valente within a half a mile of Loureiro's home. Authorities also say there is video footage of him entering an apartment building near the location of the professor's apartment. Valente appeared to have shot Loureiro, then driven to a rented storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. Finally, on the night of Thursday, December 18th, authorities stormed the facility, where they found Valente with a satchel and 2 firearms, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators have since revealed that Claudio Neves Valente was a Portuguese national and a former Brown University graduate student. He also studied in Lisbon with murdered MIT nuclear science professor Nuno Loureiro between 1995 and 2000. The nature of their relationship remains unclear, nor has it been revealed if they stayed in contact.
That's suspicious as hell. So they spent time together. I can't believe it. I actually can't believe what I'm seeing. So let's see what people are saying about that. Homeless man living in the basement of the university's engineering building. Let that sink in. This story makes as much sense as the Las Vegas shooting. There's a lot more to this story than's being presented to the public. This definitely isn't the whole story. Why is there a Reddit posting homeless guy living in the university's basement? The homeless man will get the $50,000 reward. They knew nothing. Now, all of a sudden, they have all the information in amazing detail. It's sus as hell, okay? So the official news broadcast would report the suspect's highly coordinated actions was something straight out of a spy movie.
Law enforcement source tells me there's no evidence he had any training in counterintelligence, but his actions...
The fact they've even got to say that is sus as hell. Oh, he didn't have any training in counterintelligence, but the way he went about it was pretty counterintelligence-y.
Are right out of a spy movie.
One of the reasons it was so hard to find was he knew what he was doing.
Revelations from a podium.
He was sophisticated in hiding his tracks.
And in paperwork paint a picture of a cunning killer. Claudio Valente took investigators on a wild ride that ended in a storage unit he rented in Salem, New Hampshire.
That he was moving around New England.
Valente traveled there in a rental he'd been attempting to switch out of. A main license plate covering the car's original Florida plate in the rear. The front plate removed.
Dan, law enforcement has license plate readers all over the place, but his front plate was never detected by one of those readers.
Not only was he trying to get away from the license plate readers that possibly could detect him, but also avoiding toll detectors and even just good old-fashioned police work where someone sees the car.
Authorities say Valente had multiple credit cards in different names and a phone that could not be tracked.
That he was using SIM cards that were possibly European SIM cards that are carried through a provider in the United States but does not provide real-time information about tower connections.
We're told Valente had no prior criminal record.
Since when is that a thing? Since when is that a thing? He had some special phone that couldn't be detected by tower signals. Why doesn't every gangster rapper, every drill rapper, every gang member assassin have this going on? Because everyone's getting caught with their phones. And you're telling me you can just get a special phone that just doesn't ping the cell tower?
Through a provider in the United States but does not provide real-time information about tower connections.
Since when's that a thing? This is insane.
We're told Valente had no prior criminal record. DNA from a spent gun cartridge casing was put into a national database and returned as having no matches. There are more than 800 security cameras on the Brown University campus. Valente targeted an older building with limited camera coverage. He cased Brown nearly every day for 2 weeks before the shooting and parked his car near large trees to obscure it from cameras. If it wasn't for the tipster at Brown who described Valente's car with a Florida plate, police might still be looking for him.
You know, all the pieces of the puzzle came together. Fortunately, so that was key, that once they were able to positively identify a vehicle plate associated with him in the area of Providence, run that plate and find out that it's a rental car in Boston, they were able to identify who had rented it and gather a positive identification on it pretty quickly.
So he was the most genius assassin. He had technology that no gangsters, killers have ever even thought about using. And he was foiled by some random homeless guy living in the basement of the university. Absolute ridiculousness. Giving clues to other criminals on how not to get caught. Well done, geniuses. Wouldn't this headline read, "Police completely incompetent"? Yes, indeed, Law. We knew you was going to make him out to be the smartest criminal mastermind to ever walk the earth to hide your profound incompetence. Here we go. Cunning? Yeah, he walked away. Genius. All right? Absolute ridiculousness. Okay, they're giving out the keys to the kingdom when it comes to finessing your way out of crimes. So according to initial reports, okay, the official version of events was the suspect actually harbored a 25-year grudge against Brown University, but there was no clear motive why the professor was targeted, but they had apparently spent time together. And look, we're probably never going to find out exactly how or why, but it is very suspicious. Okay, and there is a little theory as to why he might have killed the professor, which I'll tell you in a minute after this clip.
Scott Watson is a professor at Syracuse University and a former Brown classmate and friend of Claudio Neves Valente.
We had our first, welcome party, and he was sitting by himself. And I went over and tried to talk to him. He was bitter at first, but then a little bit later, he appreciated the fact that I tried to talk to him, and we became friends. And again, as far as I know, I was his only friend.
Watson remembers Neves Valente as a brilliant but frustrated student.
Basically, he thought the quality of education was too low, that he, moved from Portugal to go to a school with an education level that he thought was ridiculous. He didn't like the people, and he didn't like the food.
The two were graduate students back in 2000, spent a lot of time in the Barris Hawley Engineering Building, where Neves Valente opened fire on students just 1 week ago.
It's strange. I don't have much insight except he really hated the physics department. He felt like they let him down and didn't teach him, the magic of, or accepted him, you might say.
Scott Watson says that Valente became so frustrated with Brown that in 2003, he withdrew from school and returned to Portugal. Watson never heard from him again and said he was shocked this week to find out he was the gunman tied to the Brown massacre and the MIT murder.
Return to Portugal. Now, you remember who had ties to Portugal? Remember who had ties to Portugal? It was pretty sure it was the victim. Pretty sure it was the victim. So there's actually an interesting theory going around, okay? Actually, some police reports would basically reveal more details about the shooting, and it would suggest there could well have been a motive as long-standing jealousy dating back to their same time, the victim and the shooter, at a Portuguese university between 1995 and 2000, okay? They want you to believe that this was a years-long academic rivalry that went all the way back to Portugal. It's insane. It says police reports reveal shooters' movement on the day of the MIT professor's murder. It says on the morning of December the 15th, Claudio Manuel Neves Valente pulled a grey Nissan Sentra into a parking spot on Babcock Street and lingered in the neighborhood. 12 hours later, he fatally shot MIT physicist Nuno F.G. Loriero in the foyer of his own home. Newly released reports from the Brookline Police Department detail Valente's movements on the streets of Brookline before carrying out the targeted execution. In security camera footage and witness interviews, police discovered that Valente had been hiding in plain sight. He drew no attention to himself as he traversed through the Brookline streets for the full day, waiting for Loriero. Police later learned that Valente was the man who opened fire inside Brown University Physics Department building, shooting 11 students and killing 2 during an economic study session. Authorities searched for the suspect for 5 days before Valente killed himself on December 18th in New Hampshire. Valente, who had crossed paths with Loriero decades earlier at a university in their native Portugal, had harbored resentments over Loriero's successful career, reporters at the Boston Globe found. At the time of the shootings, investigators had no concrete evidence linking them, but Brookline police records show that despite having just committed a mass shooting in Providence, Rhode Island, Valente spent a full day in Loriero's neighborhood before killing him that evening. The records were first reported by the Boston Herald. Apparently, throughout the day, Valente made various stops all within a mile of Loriero's home at 9 Gibbs Street. While Valente parked on Babcock Street for about 4.5 hours, Loriero was at MIT overseeing PhD qualifying examinations, according to police records. At around 1:30 p.m., Valente was seen on security footage walking along Commonwealth Avenue past Jumbo Seafood, Canada Dispensary, and Fire Chicken before entering Fauvierte's, where he purchased a sandwich with cash. Police interviewed the employee who served Valente, who said there was nothing notable about their interaction, but around the same time, Loriero attended a research council meeting by 3 p.m. and was overseeing another qualifying examination. Loriero's last professional activity was after 5 p.m. when he approached a visitor log form via email, a colleague said. Soon after, he was watching a movie at home with his daughters while his wife went to a dance class, and around 8 p.m. Valente begun what police described as a pre-operational surveillance, circling the immediate neighborhood multiple times. Police wrote that Valente was most likely gathering information of the neighborhood layout by his repeated presence and probable mapping of routes, including entry and exit points. At 8:22 p.m., a neighbor's Ring camera captured Valente wearing a yellow reflective safety vest and carrying a box with a barcode, a disguise that led Loriero's daughter to believe that he was a delivery driver. So it says Loriero was in the kitchen with his wife, who had returned from her dance class when the doorbell rang. He stepped into the foyer to answer the door and was shot in the chest, abdomen, and thigh. Inside, Loriero's family heard the screams, then silence. In the days after the killing, Brookline police interviewed Loriero's family, colleagues, and students, who said he was well-liked and had no clear reason to be targeted. A professor and director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center, Loriero managed a major research lab that employed around 250 staff and students. He worked closely with graduate students in the nuclear science and engineering and physics programs and had recently implemented a new mentoring system. Although they were the typical academic pains, police interviews with students and colleagues found no evidence that Lauriero had seriously angered anyone. Lauriero's family told police they were unaware of any threats or issues and did not notice any strange interactions. Lauriero was pronounced dead at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center early in the morning after the shooting. After he opened fire, Valente drove off in the Nissan with its headlights and taillights turned off and disappeared into the night, concluding his 12-hour stint in Brookline. He was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head in the storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. Very, very bizarre. I would love to know more about what their interactions were before this happened, if they actually did have a personal beef, because it is just a little bit hard to believe. Now, a month after the shooting in January 2026, the FBI actually released transcripts, but not the video, of the confession that the suspect, apparently a completely fluent English speaker, had recorded in Portuguese before he deleted himself.
Significant news in the Brown University shooting, and it alludes to the gunman's mindset. Turns out the shooter explained himself in videos made after the violence, and now the government is releasing at least the transcripts. This is a first-person narrative for the first time on what fueled the anger in Providence and Brookline outside Boston. Hello again, everybody. I'm Gene Valicente.
Good evening. I'm Patrice Wood. In the videos recorded in Portuguese, Claudio Neves Valente does not give a motive, but he touches on his mindset, his run-in with the homeless man John, who eventually helped the police, and his recollection of the shooting. NBC 10's Leanna Falk is here with the breaking details. Leanna?
Yeah, Jean, Patrice, in the 4 videos that were recorded, Valente offered zero remorse for the shootings at both Brown and in Brookline. At some points, the transcripts say he even references to laughing. Now, the transcripts come from short videos investigators say Valente recorded after the shootings, recovered from a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. In them, he admits to planning the Brown University attack for some time, but he never explains why he targeted students or the MIT professor in Brookline. He also expresses surprise it took authorities so long to identify him and makes clear he never intended to apologize. Now, at one point, Valente says, quote, "To say that I was extraordinarily satisfied, no, but I also don't regret what I did," end quote. Later on, he appears to mention who investigators have identified as John, the Good Samaritan who turned the case on its head, saying, "I actually was confronted and he knew my license plate. I honestly never thought it would take them so long to find me."
So it is quite disturbing that he didn't actually, explain why he did this. Now, what's interesting, a lot of people are suspicious. They're saying, why would you release the transcripts and not the video? But the YouTube channel Crime Record Sin basically released a full AI recreation of the exact translated transcript to see what it would actually have looked like.
1. Okay, as you can see, my eye is kind of fucked up. It's a shell round, bounced there. I don't know if there are any kind of implications on the success of what I wanted to do or not. It's done. It was 6 months, man. Not 6 months. 6 semesters. I had already planned this for a little more. It seems that I'm starting to see a bit better out of my eye, but very little, or almost nothing. The time for the final conclusions has arrived. The time for the final conclusions has arrived. It was all a little incompetent, but at least something was done. The only objective was to leave more or less on my own terms, and it's already long overdue. And at least leave that I wouldn't be the one who ended up suffering the most from all of this. No, that cannot happen. So, if you don't like it, tough luck. Tough luck. There was also a lot of shit that I did not like, and I had to put up with it. So, what has been done now? I'm in a storage space in Salem. I've had this here for 3 years, I think. I still have money. I would have money for a few more good years. If it was in Portugal or a cheaper place, it would still be a long time, but I don't care. I've been here without caring for a very long time now. To say that I was extraordinarily satisfied, no, but I also don't regret what I did. Honestly, my only regret is this thing in the eye. But it was really hard, man. I really have far too much inertia. But since I was almost confronted by a guy there that day, not almost, I actually was confronted, and he knew my license plate, I honestly never thought it would take them so long to find me. But look, I did one more, basically, since I'm not sure. It was done at a relatively short distance and quickly, and I don't know exactly when I was hit in the eye, so I don't know exactly. I hope that at least the first one hit. I don't know. I don't care. It's all over. Now it's my time to leave on my own terms. And what else? I am not going to apologize because during my lifetime, no one sincerely apologized to me. The few times there was an appearance that it had happened, I later had access to the people privately. The conversations we had privately showed it was all fake. So they are not going to get anything from me. I did not like any one of you. I saw all of this shit from the beginning. I began to grow suspicious since I'd barely had conscious memories at the age of 3. At the age of 5, I was already sure. I saw all of this shit from the beginning, with a few exceptions, and I had hoped it would be negotiable as a matter of competence, morality. That's why I was a good guy on every level. Not always, but almost always, and no. There isn't any type. It's completely non-negotiable. So go fuck yourselves. To hell with you. 3 emails should go out today, tonight. People will receive them, basically. I'm not saying anything else. And the thing is, with this eye situation, I even thought about doing it with glasses on, and then at the last moment I thought, no, because the glasses fog up. This is at close range. I was stupid. If I had done it, it wouldn't have, but I also have no interest whatsoever in staying here. That's it. I also have no interest in being famous. I don't give a damn about how you judge me or what you think of me. The overwhelming majority of things that are going to be said, I can already imagine. In fact, I was already reading. I particularly like Trump's shit to have called me an animal, which is true. I am an animal, and he is also, but I have no love. I have no hatred towards America. I also have no hatred at all. This was an issue of opportunity. I would really like to thank you for the only opportunity that you gave me here, which was this one, and look, that's it. I don't have anything else to say. We are finished. I did not think it would be exactly on these terms, nor was I planning to come here, but this is an isolated place. I hope to stay here for at least a few good hours without being found. Even though the stupid car is outside, and obviously there is a record of my entry, and there are cameras and shit, but it will probably be a few good hours, so the longer I stay here, the better. Let's see if I've got the balls to do this to myself now, because it was hard as hell to do it to all of these people, man. It was hard as hell. I envy those who are born, by nature or not, or because of... I envy those who have no difficulty doing it, and these people exist. That's what I really envy. The rest means nothing to me. Let's see if I have the courage. It's 10 p.m., and that's it. 1.
That was chilling, honestly, and it didn't really give the answers that we were looking for. It didn't explain why he targeted this specific professor. It didn't really get too deep into the reasoning. It just kind of was a very matter-of-fact recounting of what happened, and a lot of it was about him. It was very self-centered. Now, I'm still very suspicious about this situation. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I just feel for the families of all of the people that were murdered or went missing related to these, space technology and energy programs. I am going to keep track of this story. I have no doubt there are going to be more names that are going to be added to this list very soon. I feel like this story is beginning to pick up a bit of attention in the mainstream media. Not many people covering it. Seeing it on Reddit, seeing it on a few websites, my channel, but not too much. So if you found that interesting, let me know, like the video, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought of this, and I will be sure to keep digging into this one. But yeah, this is creepy as hell, and it's dark, man. It's dark. But anyway, I hope you found that interesting. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and for now, I'm out.